So, today we will be creating a FPS character controller that can walk, sprint, jump, that doesn't get stuck on walls, and is super modular, so you can add new features to it. Let's begin. To start off, we need to create a new game object that will be the player. Let's add a character controller to it and position it. Change the radius and height of the character controller to the size you want your player to be. I will add a capsule to it, but that's optional. You can just add a capsule collider to your base player. Let's adjust the size on the capsule again, so the player is nicely sized. Now let's add the main camera to the player and position it at the very top. Now let's create a script for the mouse to look around. Call it whatever you want, I will just call it mouse script. And then add it to the main camera. To start the script off, we need to clarify the mouse sensitivity using a float. Next, let's reference the player with a transform. Write these two lines of code where we reference our input axis. You can check your input manager to look what axis we just referenced in that script. And while we are inside Unity, let's put the player where it belongs, inside the transform reference. And now let's do this part where we rotate the player, and the script should already be working. But you can't look up and down at this point. Next, let's write some code so the player looks up and down. Now everything should be working fine. Last thing is, in the start method we will be making the mouse disappear so you don't have a mouse on your screen. But one thing I did wrong here or forgot is that on the line player.rotate vector3.up times mouse x, you have to times it by time.delta time so it works properly. The script also works without that, but you will have to increase your mouse sensitivity by a lot. The next script we will be creating is actually the player script, which handles the movement. Add that to the player and we can jump right into the script. First we need to reference the character controller. Let's call it controller, and next we need to reference the speed, and we'll obviously just call that speed. Reference the horizontal and vertical axis in your update function. Make a vector3 where we move the player and call it move player or whatever you want it to be called. Next up, we will be moving the controller using the move function and the move player vector3 and our speed float. What I forgot here again is to times it by time.delta time. Don't make my mistakes, it's very buggy without the time.delta time. Setting everything up correctly, you should have a very simple controller which can jump but can move and doesn't have any gravity. But we will fix that in a second. What you can see here is what happens if you don't times it by time.delta time. It's very buggy. So yeah, that was my mistake. Let's reference the player gravity with a float again. The gravity of the Earth is minus 9.81, so that's what I used here in the script, but you can use whatever you want. In the game I'm currently working on, it's minus 20 because it feels a bit more snappy. But if you want a floating feeling, you can even make it positive. Yeah, that's pretty good if you want a floating character. At this point I finally noticed that something was wrong and added the time.delta time. And now, as you can see, everything is working fine. And using the vector3 velocity, we can set the gravity of the player, and this time don't forget the time.delta time, very important. So we can make a jump, we need to have a reference for the ground and a layer mask where we set what layer is ground. So everything you want to be ground, you need to set that on the layer ground. And we need a bool which checks if the player is on ground, and if the player is on ground, the bool gets turned on, so a signal gets sent if the player is on the ground. Let's just set everything we want to be ground as the layer ground. So we can clarify that on the layer mask ground. And make a ground check game object which we set completely at the bottom of the player. We are now ready to add a jump to the game, but before we do that, let's organize everything so we know later what all the code means. We need to set the float how high the jump will be. And then we can use the input, which is in the old input system of Unity called jump, which basically means just the spacebar. We can then use the math f.square root to calculate the height of the jump and change the player's gravity according to it. Then add one more time.delta time and the jump should be ready and functioning. As you can see, everything works. Now the last thing we need to do is add a sprint, which is super simple, and I will do it now. So when the player is pressing the left shift and is on ground, the speed gets changed to 20, and when he's not pressing left shift, the speed gets changed back to the original speed, which isn't really that optimal because there could be some bugs with it, but it's good for now. Please subscribe to my channel and like this video if you enjoy my content. I swear I will upload more in the next time.